Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 and the conclusion of this replay. Here I have a couple siege tanks and a couple marauders sitting out at my front door, sitting on a large number of minerals as I was not building enough supply depots. So I'm currently getting supply lock, trying to drop down as many supply depots as I can, trying to produce as many units as I can as well. Perhaps should have started teching some of that cloak tech. Also getting double barracks, getting double reactor cores in order for me to be able to start spamming more marines. 2 siege tanks on this high ground. Perhaps should have moved it up into here, and I would have been able to cover this whole entire front door. Banshees and siege tanks also on that lower ground as well. Here we have Enrix with a couple stalkers and a couple zealots. Fairly sizable army. Taking a look at the army count, it's 78 for me, 72 for Enrix, and he does have a more expensive army at this stage in the game. Zealots do in fact have charge. Stalkers do not have blink, however, and now we finally have some probes being transferred over from that main to that natural expansion. Taking a look over here, I have now trying to put down some supply depots in order to still can produce more units, finally getting below 1,000. And here we have a very large army. Enrix now trying to move in, and now Enrix also chatting to me, so I'm coming in. I'm gonna go ahead and have an engagement in the center map. Overshield quickly being activated, so these marauders and marines, or those guardian shields, really giving additional 2 armor to the rest of those units. And this is a really bad for myself. And siege tank now trying to siege off in the back position in order to perhaps start dealing damage towards those units. But still, I'm sieging a little bit too early, and this attack is going to be very effective. These siege tanks trying to blast into this position over here, able to deal a fair amount of damage, trying to take down some of those guardian shields, able to take down one of those sentries. But still, now those siege tanks are too far away and unable to continue that fight. Marines now trying to come back in. Siege tanks going to go ahead and try to move over a single medevac in the air, going to start healing those marines, as that siege tank is going to start blasting away, able to take down another sentry, and perhaps trying to take down that last stalker. Stalker down to 53 hit points. Down it goes from a blast from that siege tank. Siege tank getting 2 kills. And this fight is going to continue. These stalkers, however, are able to walk into my base and get out of the range of those siege tanks. So those siege tanks not in that best position right now, as Enrix walking in with 5 stalkers. These stalkers are going to be an issue, and he's also going to be moving in a warp prism. Warp prism being able to just warp in units in the back of my base. Not looking good for me at this stage in the game. I do not have a planetary fortress on this orbital command, as he's able to focus down this medevac. Marines now trying to come in, trying to perhaps fight back a little bit here, but that stalker is still trying to draw them within the range of these siege tanks, but the siege tanks really not shooting them down. I perhaps should have started moving over some of these units, and as soon as I see this warp prism coming in, I know that this is going to be a really bad sign. I go ahead and move my SCVs over there, and I should have just left them in that position so he wouldn't have been able to warp in any units. But now he's warping in a couple of those stalkers and a couple of those zealots, as these SCVs are once again trying to re-engage, trying to fight back. The stalkers are not a good counter towards those SCVs. It takes 6 shots in order for them to really take down one of those units. Down goes that last single zealot. Zealot now trying to run over, going to go ahead and finish off the rest of these marines, as those zealots are in fact upgraded. More zealots now being warped in the backside of my base, as Enrix is trying to just mine out from over here. The main base has pretty much been mined out. Same thing over here. My main base has also almost been mined out as well. Stalkers now coming into play. Siege tank going to be able to take down this, perhaps take down this last stalker. Stalker now trying to come in, trying to walk away, but still getting destroyed. So there's only a single disruptor left on that backhand side. Enrix sitting on 400 minerals, but still waiting for those. No, going to start warping in units in just a second, most likely. A single disruptor trying to burn down that supply depot. Supply depot already down to 9 hit points, getting destroyed, and sentries now getting destroyed as well. So Marines, as they're trying to warp in, trying to take down one of those zealots. Zealots taking a lot of that damage, and more zealots trying to come in as well. Single siege tank with some SCVs trying to stay close by. Zealots once again trying to move back around that siege tank, causing that splash damage, able to take down, and that last zealot has been taken down. I finally am able to produce a Viking, so that Viking will be able to push back against this warp prism, and I will be able to finally take down that warp prism and once again try to move back out. Warp prism taking a fair amount of damage. Enrix trying to warp in some units in just a moment, and as he's warping in that final unit, it gets destroyed, so he loses that unit. Enrix. Now, I know that at this stage, Enrix only has one expansion left. I've been scanning the rest of this map, trying to figure out if he has, in fact, any map control or any economic control. I'm also calling down a couple mules in order to try to increase my my mineral production. And then I'm going to start queuing up a lot of units out of my barracks, trying to get more units out of my factory, as I'm going to move out with this large number of siege tanks. 6 siege tanks, 7 siege tanks with a medevac. SCV is going to go ahead and try to repair that medevac, and barracks should be producing some units in just a moment, as I'm going to go ahead and try to macro up my game once again. So just mining out very, very effectively with these mules giving me a lot of minerals at this stage in the game. I also need to start mining out some of this refinery, as I'm also low on gas. Taking a look at this, Marines now finally being produced out of my barracks. So a fair number of Marines getting produced out of my barracks. So I'm going to go ahead and try to use this Marine or the siege tank and Marine army. No upgrades on my Marines, no upgrades on my siege tanks. Perhaps I'm going to start upgrading from this armory, which is going to get completed right now. I don't know if I start upgrading my vehicle attack. Now we also have a fair number of zealots and stalkers now trying to come around on that north hand side. He knows where my army is, because there is in fact a single observer over here. I go ahead and do a scan, and I realize that he's pretty exposed on this south hand side. So if I can get siege tanks and siege in this position, I start to move and I start to siege, and I realize that in comes those stalkers. This is not a good fight for me. I'm gonna go ahead and try to blast away these siege tanks or those zealots, but quickly taking a lot of damage. The Viking dropping back into ground mode in order to try to fight back against the rest of these units. A couple of stalkers, siege tanks are going to go ahead and try to come back out of that siege mode back into tank mode, and those siege tanks in tank mode hopefully will be able to focus down these units. So down to only 2 siege tanks left and a couple of Marines. So a single siege tanks, 3 siege tanks, as I had more siege tanks coming back, bringing up the rear, and then these siege tanks are going to be able to just shoot up on that cliff. So Enrix is going to lose a lot of these Marines as that single medevac trying to guard on that high side. I want to make sure that I do not lose anything really here. Also, we finally have a warp prism now being warped in, so I quickly go back into that siege tech, as I know he's going to try to warp in some additional units, and in come these units. Those siege tanks, because they're able to fire against these zealots, which are currently getting warped in, they take double damage as they're being warped in. So those zealots quickly getting taken out, and him also losing that last warp prism. So he's going to be unable to continue to drop on me at this stage in the game. Going to go ahead and take down that observer that was floating overhead. We also brought in a couple SCVs in order to start repairing these siege tanks. So going to go ahead and once again re-siege and try to start blasting away, try to stop him from mining. Also going to go ahead and drop down an auto turret in order to give some sight. So this auto turret gonna start shooting down some of these units. The probes being forced to push back away, and that auto turret taking down that nexus along with some help from the siege tank. So the siege tank's able to take down that last pylon over here. Taking a look back at the main base, Enrix is forced to try to mine out of this position. I know at this stage of the game, the longer the game goes, the better position I'm going to be in. Since I've already pretty much semi-fortified this bottom hand location, I'm going to go ahead and destroy these destructible rocks and try to build a command center down over here. If it works, kudos to me. If it doesn't, it's no real loss on my part, since I'm not trying to take any map positioning where I don't already have. Raven's still up in the air, offering detection. And these siege tanks are going to once again have to be pulled back out. I have a large number of Marines, so 23 Marines, 25 Marines going to go ahead and just try to move in and try to take down the rest of these photon cannons. Single pylon still offering a little bit of power over in that position as I start to build out this command center over here. So this command center going to be supplying me additional minerals. SCVs still mining out over here, and then a couple SCVs still mining out in this position. This main base has already been mined out, or this main Vesperian geyser has already been mined out as well. So it's going to go ahead and take a look at this. Marines trying to focus down the rest of these army, and taking a look back at my base, I've already massed up a large number of siege tanks again, and I'm going to go ahead and try to move out with more Marines. Going to get more siege tanks. I queued up a little bit too many. Should have tried to drop down another factory in order to speed up my macro. Going to go ahead and just try to get some siege tanks on that high ground, trying to focus down these units, and these Marines are just able to focus down a lot of those stalkers. Going to go once again pull back so that those stalkers once again are trying to engage these Marines. and those Stalkers. So I lose a single Siege Tank, but I also have more Siege Tanks gonna go ahead and bring up the rear as these Warp Gates gonna be taken down. I have a large number of Siege Tanks, so I'm gonna go ahead and move up these Siege Tanks and place them along this position so that I'm offering myself additional coverage. So in come those Siege Tanks just firing up onto that high ground. I don't think, yeah, I'm still not upgrading that weapon attack, but still coming up with these Siege Tanks, just trying to do a slow Terran push at this stage in the game. A single Colossus is going to quickly get destroyed, and Enrix says GG. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 matchup here on Blistering Sands. Hope to see you guys on Battle.net.